Who are the good guys? Who are the bad guys? This question is very important for every person to be able to answer clearly. We should know very easily who the good guys are, who the bad guys are. Even though the good guys are not absolutely good, but it's clear that they are generally moving or operating out of a good value system to bring good to the world. The bad guys are people who are generally operating out of a bad model, and they are trying to bring evil to the world. When we have confusion between the Israelis and Hamas, that is a terrible state of affairs. We have no clarity whatsoever. When one group has a charter that is calling for the annihilation of another entity, they are the bad guys, period. And when another group is defending themselves, even though what they have to do to defend themselves is very harsh, but they are not bad people at all. They're entrenched in goodness. In fact, Israel, in the case of Israel and Hamas, Israel gave Gaza to Hamas. Israel had Gaza, they gave it to Hamas. So when people don't see this clarity, because they begin to have this tunnel vision of seeing something harsh being done, which for whatever reasons they cannot see in context, we begin living in a very immoral world. Now, the good people are never perfectly good. Whenever you're dealing with a large group of people, you're going to have certain actors who are going to do things which are not what the group actually stands for. Yes, but we cannot say that because someone did something which is negative, now this entire group is evil just like the other group. This becomes a very, very dangerous, because what we end up doing is we end up equating the good and the bad, and then we have actually no distinction between good and bad. And what ends up happening, the result of that actually is, which is what we're seeing play out today in the world, is that the bad people are being called good, the good people are being called bad. The ones who have in their charter the call to wipe out an entire nation are the ones who are called freedom fighters, and then those who are defending themselves from being wiped out, they are the ones being accused of genocide. And sometimes we look at this in stunning shock to say, how did the world come to this? Well, it came to this because we actually equate a group of people who are actually evil and their charter calls for evil, and we equate them to others who are good people, and because there are harsh things that they do, we say, oh, that must be evil, and then we have no borders between good and evil. This is actually exactly what Candace Owens is beginning to do more and more in everything that she's articulating. She just put out a podcast where she minimized Nazi medical experiments by saying, well, there are American doctors or other doctors who have done that as well. Does that minimize, if the moment we are going to minimize the gross evil that a group has done because there are some others as individuals who have done it, we are blurring the lines between good and evil. When we blur the lines between good and evil, we don't have clarity. We don't have clarity, we are making space for evil. This becomes a voice of evil. May not be intended, that's what it's going to create. When we equate the bombing of Dresden, which was for the purpose of shutting down the Nazi regime, to the Nazi regime by saying that's just as evil, right? And if we cannot see the difference between the two, and the difference between the mission of Nazi Germany versus the mission of the United States of America, which is a democracy, if we cannot see the difference and we are going to start equating one with the other, we are creating a very dangerous precedent. Sometimes I've noticed that there are people who they feel enlightened, like, oh, a discovery. Look, America also did this. And we don't see the broader picture. That enlightenment is actually not enlightenment at all. It actually darkens everything we're looking at. And the confusion we bring into the world and being a voice of that is we become a voice of expanding evil in the world. There's a statement from our sages, Chachamim, wise ones, be very careful with your words. When someone's going to get out there on a platform and speak, be very careful. Because if you don't have your information straight, and you're just a young person feeling enlightened, you may in fact start becoming an asset to the evil itself.